Hi all, this is Erica, aka ECR Horses 1901, and today we are going to talk about GRAILS, specifically Breyer models that I would love to get my hands on, but probably never will. In some cases, it could be because of cost, in some cases, it's due to rarity, and in several cases, it's both. I should remind you that I've only been seriously collecting for a little less than a year. I have been to a couple of local swap meets, but this July will be my first Breyer Fest. So it is possible that some of these horses may not be as rare or unobtainable, or even as expensive as I thus far have found them to be. I also would like to note that this is not a complete list of every model that I want. These are, again, they're the GRAILS. They're the ones that I want a little bit more than the rest, because there's a lot of items or specific things that do not appear on this list. I'm thinking models that come with old examples of Breyer packaging, for examples, that I would definitely love to get my hands on, but that I don't necessarily consider GRAILS. Now, most of these are in no particular order, except the first one. Come on, everyone, say it with me. Franken Steed! If you have been watching pretty much any of my videos, you know that my number one GRAIL on top of all others by many miles is Franken Steed. He was from the 2009 Lone Star experience, and only 100 of him were made, so there aren't a lot of him in this world. The website Breyer Value Guide, which in my opinion tends to undersell what models usually go for, even they have him priced for between $4,500 and $5,000. I have only seen him pop up on eBay once as a completed sale, and when he was sold that time, it was indeed for about $5,000. So this is a perfect example of the barriers to getting this guy are a little bit financial and a little bit him being rare. You know, my husband and I joke that I'm going to see him for sale in the Clarion, and I'm going to have some very difficult decisions to make. Because basically, if I buy him, I'm not going to be able to buy any other horses, just because I'm sure his price will be astronomical as said, which, you know, not being able to buy any other models than the ones that I've pre-ordered would be disappointing. On the other hand, I would have Franken Steed, so I don't like thinking about that scenario. If you were watching this and at any point in time you see a Franken Steed for sale, especially if it's around maybe $2,500, maybe even up to $3,000, please let me know. My email is in the description of every video, especially my last bunch. I will love you and give you all the credit forever. Moving on. Next up is the silver holographic Uffington on the Excalibur mold. He was a 2021 Breyer Fest special run, but this particular color was limited to just 200 pieces. I have seen him for sale here and there, but never for less than $1,000. Now, I'm a sucker for color shifty anything. Although this Excalibur mold isn't super top tier for me anymore, I mean, he just takes up so much space on my shelf. But I, nevertheless, would still absolutely take this guy. Maybe a more subdued want, but this is Spring Has Sprung on the American Saddlebred Stallion mold. He was a web special in 2011, limited to just 150 pieces. You know by now that I like a good roan, and he is very striking. This is also one of my favorite molds, so the combination of everything makes him a real strong candidate for me. I don't think I've ever come across him for sale, and I frankly have no idea what he would cost. And the last one on this mold is Confetti, who unfortunately I just have this very small picture of, which makes it hard to see the details. He was limited to 200 pieces from the Sunshine Celebration, which took place in April of 2011 in both Orlando and Ocala, Florida. It was one of those events that was only for just about horse subscribers. Hey Breyer, think about doing an event, any event, one of these limited events, some kind of Breyer Festy type thing. Think about doing it up here in New England for once, because there is life north of New Jersey. Just throwing that out there. You know, Breyer Fest is nice. I understand it's much harder to get to Kentucky if you live out on the West Coast, but just saying. Anyway, this guy's a Palomino with some really nice dappling. It's another one where this might seem like an unlikely grail, but due to the fact that he is pretty rare and is another one that I have never seen for sale, that's why he's ended up on this list. Another perhaps unlikely addition is Excalibur on the Hackney mold. There is apparently nothing too special about him color-wise, but he was a 1997 Breyerfest special run with only 200 made. What can actually be really cool about this particular model, and it comes across in this picture, is that, and this is all according to Identify Your Breyer, about half of the Excaliburs are actually repainted, giltage models, which therefore does make them unique. And apparently you can tell either by holding it up to the light like that person, or by seeing some examples of where there may have been repainting physically on the models themselves. So therefore, it's not that I'm necessarily looking for any Excalibur, but one of these repainted versions, yes. The Brady gift set. So as you can see, this version of Brady from 1974 through 1981 came with a softcover book, and also this kind of cool box. This set would be an amazing find, but I imagine that just due to the nature of it, it is probably also quite rare. However, would love to come across it. Jazz Fusion on the Cleveland Bay mold. He is from the 2007 Connoisseur series. I love this coloring on this particular mold. He is quite expensive, even on the Breyer Value Guide, which prices him at up to $1,000. He has sold on eBay for somewhere in the 900s, which it is what it is. Just by his being in the Connoisseur series, that means that he was capped at 350 a number. I've also seen him pop up on other people's grail lists, so I feel like getting him could probably be quite competitive. The Flocked Clydesdale on the Clydesdale Mare mold. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think flockies are a bit cursed, but that doesn't mean I can't want a few. In fact, I'm kind of including this one here as a stand-in for a bunch of other flockies. I just didn't feel like making this 18 hours long. This particular mare comes with the halter and lead rope that you see, plus the ribbons. Well, you can't see them well from this angle, but you can from this direction. She has those ribbons / flowers maybe on her mane and tail. Interestingly, even though this is the Clydesdale mare mold, apparently some of these came with stallion parts, so there's that. Anyway, this was from the 1983 and 1984 Sears Holiday Catalog. 5,600 pieces were made, so it might not be the most collectible numbers-wise, but I think with all the other factors combined, especially if you find one with the halter and lead rope and in decent condition, I would not pass her or him up. Last, this one joins the club of horses that I have never found for sale online anywhere in any condition. Posiden on the Esprit mold. This is yet another horse I have never seen for sale online, for as long as I have been looking. He also has the double whammy of potentially being very expensive if or when he shows up, as the Breyer Value Guide has him listed between $1,000 and $1,300, And remember, I find that their estimates are usually on the low end. He was second in the Greek Gods web series, limited to just 230 pieces. He is described as a chalky Blue Roan Overo Pinto. I love pretty much everything about him. It's another Connoisseur Series horse. This one from 2009, Nectosha on the Fighting Stallion mold. He has, again, it's hard to see here, I apologize, but just really interesting and detailed coloring. He is not a top tier Grail, but he is lovely. Like other connoisseurs, he was limited to 350 pieces. And again, I have not yet seen him for sale. Cassiopeia on the Indian Pony mold. I pretty much just want all of the connoisseur horses. Like, hands down. Having the full collection of them would honestly be collecting goals. Did I just set a really expensive challenge for myself? She was a 2007 horse, limited again to just 350, and joins the now ever increasingly long line of models I have not seen come up for sale. Hope and Glory on Lady Faye's mold. Top tier want. It's Lady Faye's, I love her coloring. She's a connoisseur horse from 2002 to be exact, and she is freaking expensive. At the time I am making this video, she is currently for sale on eBay for over $2,000. I have only ever seen her for sale for about that price, despite a very hopeful Breyer value guide recommending between $500 and $600, which I wish. Again, she's another one that seems to be fairly popular, I think because the Lady Faye's mold is itself fairly popular. And so, once more, I imagine that the competition to get her when she does come up is probably pretty fierce. Mosaic on the Lonesome Glory mold. This horse gets the honor of potentially being my most expensive want, believe it or not. This was the first Connoisseur Series model in 2001, which is probably why about 330 of her were made, so a few less than the typical number. She is also, as of the making of this video, currently on sale on eBay for nearly $3,000, but the Breyer value guide, which again tends to lowball things, recommends up to $8,000. Specifically for the glossy version, okay? The matte one that you're seeing on the screen, it had lower numbers for, but if you are interested in the glossy, I think they recommended a range of like 5,000 to 8,000. Truly out there. Now granted, the glossy version was limited to just 20 pieces, which is minuscule. Fortunately, this is one of those cases where the matte coloring would suit me just fine. Moon Warrior on the Nakota mold. Not to sound like a broken record, but it is another connoisseur model. This time from 2008, this was apparently the 33rd horse in the series according to its COA. Cool coloring on a mold I'm otherwise meh about, but because it's a connoisseur horse, for me that ups the desirability. Even despite how I might otherwise feel about this mold. Gran Cavallo on the Peruvian Paso mold. Now, the regular Gran Cavallo is not rare or that expensive, so of course, that is not the one I want. I'm talking about this here color shift version, who was a 2021 Breyerfest special run, but this one was limited to 200 in number. I have never seen the color shift version available for sale online, but the Breyer value guide recommends from $1,000 to $1,400 for the price. So again, I am going to guess that if or when this guy does turn up somewhere, he is going to be an investment. Kandinsky on the POA mold. It's another freaking connoisseur horse, who could have guessed? He's from 2011 and is another one that's not towards the top of my list, but I would take. Again, I have now apparently set myself the awful goal of trying to get the connoisseur models. Why? Rubicon on the Salinero mold. Another top want. Yes, he is a connoisseur horse from 2008. And I have seen him for sale for around $1,500, which is not great, but he is one of my favorite models ever. I didn't think I was too crazy about any of the horses on the silver mold, but I took another look recently before I even was thinking about developing this video, and I came across Melus. I have only seen the stablemate version of this horse for sale, and that's like 70 to 80 bucks. So that's not promising. He is from not the Connoisseur series. He is from the 2002 Breyer Premiere event. This was another one of those events that was only open to just about horses subscribers, and you also had to be selected to win one of the 200 spots. So I once more imagine that this horse in the traditional series, if he were to be for sale, would probably be pretty expensive. Pollock on the Vallegro mold. I have seen the other rainbowier version, for lack of better terms. I have seen him in person and for sale plenty of times, but of course I am after the rarer gold version, which once more was limited to 200 and was a 2021 Breyer Fest special run. It's a shame I didn't get back into collecting a few years earlier, because it sounds like there were a lot of models that I would have liked that year. I have only seen him sold on eBay once for $1,200. Fair Dinkum, the hatless Oldtimer, who was limited to just 40 in number, and who I have also never seen for sale. He was from the 2021 True Blue event, which was an online event based out of Australia, but you once more had to be selected for a spot. The Breyer Value Guide has him listed for $800 to $900, but I highly doubt that would be the case. Oldtimer is an interesting / fun mold anyway. Him not having the blinkers, not having the hat, and the interesting Roni Appaloosa coloring is it just makes him really interesting all around. Yes, that's right, we have a couple of non-horse molds on this list. The first is this red Angus on the black Angus mold. I learned about this guy through the Breyer History Diva blog. He was a 200-piece limited edition from 1984, created for the Iowa Red Angus Association, which makes sense. I have definitely never seen him for sale, but I have a soft spot for Black Angus cattle because I actually had to work with them when I briefly was in school for animal science, and I just like the uniqueness of this model. Widowmaker, the Spanish fighting bull. We haven't talked about the livestock molds yet, perhaps that's something I gotta do sooner rather than later, but this is one that I like almost all of the variations of. He was from the 2009 Connoisseur series, so I am morally obligated to want him. He is currently for sale on eBay for $1,050, which is honestly at this point what I would expect to spend. And there was really only one way that I could bookend this video, which started with Franken Steed, and will end with the Frankenstein horse, aka Franken Stang, I have heard him called, on the obviously semi-raring Mustang mold. He is from the 2008 Velvet Rope event. The Frankenstein horse, though, because there was also a stablemate-sized Frankenstein horse, which frankly is just a little green horse. He doesn't really have anything that interesting to him. At least this guy has the bolts and some other details that make him a little more interesting. This guy here was the table centerpiece, and I am not sure how those were distributed because there were only 21 of them. He is not as good as Franken Steed, at least in my opinion, but I would definitely not turn him down. I have only seen this Frankenstein horse pop up on eBay once, and believe it or not, it was only a little over $1,000, which is crazy to me because he is technically, just numbers-wise, way more collectible than Franken Steed. In any case, I have never seen him since. So that's it. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is not a complete list of horses I want. This is just the grails because they are expensive or rare or both. I do have a fairly long list of other horses and other models if you add in the livestock that I've more steadily been working my way through purchasing, as with the Benelli that I showed you in the past. More recently, I got my hands on Pamplemousse, who you can see in the background of this video. You know, I don't even know how well that model is going to show, but I just know that ever since I saw Pamplemousse, I wanted her, or him rather. I would say that if you have any leads on any of the horses that I have mentioned in this video, to let me know, but ordinarily I would say that. However, we have had a handful of recent cat and house and car expenses, not to mention there are other things I need to purchase in the months leading up to Breyerfest. So unfortunately, I'm really trying not to buy many, if any, models until then, which I think we're all trying, and is much easier said than done. So yeah, maybe don't tell me if any of these pop up for sale, because I don't want to know. If you're watching this video after Breyerfest 2024, however, then yeah, I'll actually put a list of the horses that I have mentioned in this video down in the comments. So take a look at them there, and as I said before, my email is also there, so feel free to contact me and give me a heads up because it would be ever so much appreciated. So that's all for today's video. If you enjoy what you saw here today, please like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I also always welcome your comments. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.